Let's talk Brexit, shall we? Apparently, there's been a deal agreed with Brussels to resolve the Northern Ireland Protocol. I'm going to just get straight into this, Ben, because a lot of people watching this, you know, they might not live in Northern Ireland, they might live in, I don't know, Wolverhampton, they're sitting there and they're saying, this Northern Ireland Protocol
and
thing...
they're rolling their eyes at it.
Around it,
yeah.
Like, why would I be concerned? You know, what would you say to them?
OK, so, as I'm sure you know, Michelle, and lots of viewers will know, I've been fighting the Northern Ireland Protocol from the beginning. And it's not because I have now developed a particular love for Northern Ireland, but actually when I started this campaign against the protocol, it wasn't because of any particular love of Northern Ireland. It was because I could see it was going to be used to damage the United Kingdom. And that's what it's done. And this is what people in Great Britain, as distinct from Northern Ireland, need to understand. Northern Ireland has been left behind in the EU single market for goods. So there's a regulatory border down the Irish Sea. That means that if Great Britain wishes to deviate from EU law, that border will become increasingly more obvious. So to give you a very tangible example, you know, yesterday there was a lot of chat about Brexit and how things hadn't really been done with Brexit, how we hadn't taken advantage of it. And Nigel on his show opened by saying, you know, one of the simplest things the government could have done, and is pertinent in the cost of living crisis, is cut the 5% tax on fuel duty that we, you know, the fuel duty that we pay for home fuel. But we can't do that. Because if we did cut that tax, Northern Irish would still be paying it under the terms of the protocol, and people in Great Britain would be better off, and demonstrably the protocol would be damaging Northern Ireland. Rishi Sunak got up in the Commons a few months ago and said he can't cut VAT in Great Britain because of the Northern Ireland Protocol. And it doesn't stop there. There's a whole host of regulatory aspects associated with the protocol that prevent us...
When you say he can't cut VAT because of the Northern Ireland Protocol, is it can, or is it doesn't want to because he doesn't want to create a point of difference between...
Because he doesn't want to create a point of difference. He can cut it in Great Britain.
Yeah, so he can technically do it, but he's choosing not to.
But he can't do it in Northern Ireland, and he's choosing not to. And that problem applies to a whole host of regulations. So one of the reasons we haven't ditched lots of EU law is because we don't want to deviate from the EU, because it'll show up that regulatory border down the Irish Sea. And that is precisely how the EU wanted the protocol to work, to hold Britain, to hold the United Kingdom close through Northern Ireland. It's a gaff, if you know what I mean by a gaff, which is that really brutal fishing instrument you use to you know, hook a large fish when it's up by the side of your boat. You get it into the flesh of the fish and you pull it out. And that's what the protocol is. So if anyone in Great Britain thinks it's not an issue for them, it's a huge issue. And the other point I just want to make, and it's an emotive point, but it's a very important one. What kind of country are we if we are going to leave behind 1.8 million people in Northern Ireland subject to foreign laws made by a foreign parliament, a foreign government, and enforced by a foreign court? That is literally a breach of human rights.
Sensible stuff there, Kevin Craig. Do you agree with him?
No, I don't. I don't. And I don't. And I think what's needed in Northern Ireland is the compromise, flexibility and mutual understanding that has characterised the peace process since the Good Friday Agreement. Now, for full transparency, which Ben won't mind, you know, I'm a British citizen, an Irish citizen. I'm proud and I love both countries, right? Ben, you know, you're very much aligned with this traditional, what is it called, traditional unionist voice party. You've donated to them. You do a lot of campaigning on Brexit with my very good friend, well, I don't share politics, Lady Kate Hoey. But people who are not as immersed in it, in Northern Ireland, there isn't unanimity about how people feel about the protocol. I thought the Irish Taoiseach, the Irish Prime Minister, was really conciliatory a few days ago. He said he understands, and I understand actually, why in the unionist community there is anger and uncertainty caused by the protocol. They feel it was, when it was agreed, there wasn't a functioning executive in Northern Ireland, so they feel upset about that. On the positive side, the Northern Irish economy is outperforming the economy of our country as a whole. There is no hard border, OK? There is no hard border in the sense that many people understand it. And the Prime Minister, where we probably do agree, is in a pickle because he would love to compromise, I think, but there are many people, for very valid reasons, who share, if you like, Ben's outlook, who think that this risks going too far. I think, and William Hague said it today, there should be compromise, and I think that Northern Ireland only succeeds when people of extreme different views can manage to come together. And the language about foreign governments, well, half the population in Northern Ireland identify more with the Republic of Ireland.
The entire population in Northern Ireland is British.
Ben, half the population of Northern Ireland identify with the Republic of Ireland, right? The Good Friday Agreement agreed in law that if a majority of people ever voted to leave and join the Republic of Ireland, they would. I'm just trying to say we need compromise, and sometimes the tone of the discussions doesn't respect both unionist and nationalist communities.
With the greatest of respect, there should be no compromise on this issue. Northern Ireland is part of the Union of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, part of the United Kingdom. There can be no compromise. You cannot have a foreign. You cannot have a foreign power making laws and adjudicating them in part of the United Kingdom. That is vassalage. That is the annexation of part of the United Kingdom. The Good Friday Agreement is going to be set asunder if they don't ditch the protocol. That is how dangerous this political game is. We're getting into Northern Irish politics, and I wanted to keep this really relevant to people in the United Kingdom as a whole.
But it's all interwoven, I think.
But it is interwoven. It is interwoven. But there can be no excuse for it. There can be no excuse for a foreign power adjudicating part of the United Kingdom. It cannot happen. And overnight, we had this deal that came out championing the possibility of an invisible trade border between Great Britain and Northern Ireland.
And this hasn't been confirmed yet, has it?
No, it's just a rumour. But if you can have an invisible trade border between Great Britain and Northern Ireland, which has 5 times more trade than Northern Ireland to the Republic, you can equally and easily have that invisible trade border on the island where the border already exists and where the Good Friday Agreement recognises a border. And moreover, and I want everyone to look this up if they've got 10 minutes spare, there is a paper produced by the European Union in November 2017 which says a smart border on the island of Ireland is quite feasible, and the customs border could easily have gone there. What's happened is the EU has seen this as a political gaffe, as a political opportunity, and gaff the United Kingdom in its side and hook it and either bring it back or split Northern Ireland off from the United Kingdom. And that is entirely unacceptable to every British citizen in this country. Except you, perhaps, Kevin.
No, I think, Ben, 57% of us in this country don't think Brexit was a good idea as we sit here.
We're not talking about Brexit, we're talking about the protocol right now.
If you attribute characteristics and motives to the European Union, I think, we have to be accurate. I don't believe the European Union wants to cause trouble for our government.
That's precisely what it wants to do, Kevin.
It doesn't. The European Union didn't want us to vote leave, but now that we did, it respects that.
Come on.
It does.
It has made it as difficult as possible.
My good friends, you're hardcore Brexiteers around this table.
It's not about being hardcore or anything. It's about basic common sense. Why would a union, the EU, want to make it easy and seamless for the UK to exit? There's been so many rumours and all the rest of it around other countries trying to separate from the EU. It is surely, and this is common sense, it's not anything about being loyal to Brexit or loyal to Remain. It's basic common sense. It is surely in the interest of the EU to make this process as difficult, as painful and as full of friction as possible to send a message to any other country.
Absolutely. Never
ever considered Brexit, well, it wouldn't be Brexit, but never ever consider leaving the EU, because look at what will happen if you do. Well, surely you must concede that.
No, absolutely. I'll tell you why specifically. Number one, Northern Ireland is a place unlike no other in the Union, with its historical, cultural, religious circumstances. And the European Union's leading commissioners' representatives are on the record as saying that they want to try and get a situation that never, ever risks escalating divisions in Northern Ireland, which in any way risk bringing us back to the bad old days. So they do not... Of course they didn't want us to leave, but it's done.
Kevin, why isn't the customs border where the EU said it could quite easily go in the first place? It was only after that EU paper came out that Varadkar then took these incredibly emotive photographs to an EU summit in 2018, showing bombed-out border posts in Northern Ireland. To win the political... He literally weaponised the border issue. And you know, if you talk about destabilising the peace process, that's precisely what the protocol does. It destabilises the peace process.
I think...
I mean, we've really gone deep into Northern Irish.
We have. I go back to what I said in the first time I was speaking this evening, is that in terms of why it matters to viewers across this country, and I maintain that if this is going to work, there has to be compromise and flexibility.
For which you mean regulatory alignment across the UK. Well, and that's the end of Brexit, and that's what the EU wants. That's the problem.
Got to say, I do agree on that last statement.
Who'd have thought it, Michelle?
I know. Well, that's because, I mean, it absolutely blows my brain that you think that the EU actually want this to be as seamless and as easy and as gentle and as effective and as efficient as possible. I can't get my head around that, and it's not because I'm in the same Brexit camp as Ben. It's about... it just doesn't stack up.
Well, do you think the European Union's done anything of any note or good in its history?
But this country...
Of course. I don't hate the EU, but on balance, I just think that actually this country would be better served being an independent nation. It doesn't mean that I hate Europe or Europeans or the European Union or anything like that.
This country will not be able to become truly independent and chart a path for its national interest and the interest of British people until it ditches the Northern Ireland Protocol.
Well, never mind this country. This programme won't be able to stay on track if I don't get myself to a break in a second.
Did I mention, Michelle, that 57% of people currently... You know, I'm not suggesting we do.
You did mention your 57%.
Right? We have to give it a chance. Just saying.
Well, you know what, guys? You've heard different perspectives. I'm going to leave it with you at home to make your own mind up.